I don't know if you can see those tracks, but those are probably the only tracks you're going to see today because there's nobody else crazy enough to be out here on the trail. I stayed with a very dear friend last night. Got off the trail. I needed to recharge my electronics and get resupply. And it worked out great because it was a pretty bad winter storm and we've got more bad weather coming. So needless to say, my mileage is going to go way down, but that's okay. I'm out here doing it. There's adversity on the trail, just like adversity Charles has to deal with. But so part of my gear for this is I've got gaiters that go around my lower legs to keep the snow out of my boots. And I have something called micro spikes. So here, I'll show you. Well, I'm getting to the top of this mountain. I don't know how much farther I've got, but it is a real slog. You can see I'm down to just this alpaca shirt, and I am drenched. I'm so hot. I've been eating little bites of ice on the way up to stay hydrated and also to cool me down. It's not doing much to cool me down, but you could see right here how the snow fell. Right here at the bottom is all soft and fluffy, and then at the top it's ice like that. So when I walk, I'm punching through this ice. They call that breaking trail, and when two or more people hike, they'll have one person go in front for a while to break trails, and it makes it easier for the people behind. Because I'm kind of post-holing. It's about 7 inches deep, and you punch through that top layer. The micro spikes work great. There are places where I walk under white pine trees or hemlock trees, and most of that rain froze on their needles. So the snow below is all soft and fluffy. And I'm glad I don't have soft, fluffy snow to walk in because the micro spikes don't work as well on that. So, anyhow, much needed break. I feel the steam coming off of me. And I should be to the top of this mountain pretty soon. Ooh, that was pretty scary coming up there. There's just a cliff and a long way down. And the snow is pretty treacherous. I don't know when I'll get to the top of this mountain. It just seems to go on and on and on. Hopefully I'm nearing the top, but the snow really compounds things. It's been a learning experience. It's kind of fun. You could see the little tracks for squirrels, and they'll dig in the snow and pull out a bunch of junk and try and find an acorn or something. But all the trees here are really coated with snow. I've been going uphill for about 4 hours. And finally, I think I'm headed down. I'm drenched in sweat. I'll have to be careful I don't get chilled going downhill because it takes a lot less effort to go downhill. So about Charles and his case. Well, The Intercept, if you go online, they did a podcast called Murderville, Texas. And they do a real good job of talking about the case. And it is complicated. But back in 1992, there was a woman named Edna Franklin. She was 71 years old. She was a very tiny woman. I think she weighed under 80 pounds. She was a widowed bank teller. And she lived in her house with her 2 grandsons. So one night, Lee and Eric were out. And Eric came home and the front door was open, which is highly unusual. And when he walked in, it was dark and he stumbled over something. He thought it was a pile of clothes. But he walked over and turned the light on, and he found it was his grandmother, Miss Franklin. And she was lying on the floor of the living room, and there was blood all over. She was lying on her side. He turned her over on her back to see if she was breathing. And that's when he discovered her throat was cut. I mean, really bad. It cut her trachea, her windpipe. And Lee came home a little later. Eric didn't call the police. He called a friend of his. And it's debatable who did, whether it was eventually Eric or Lee. We don't know for sure. To the best of their knowledge, nothing was taken. The contents of her purse were spread out on her bed. And also, her panties were on the floor beside her, and her jeans, so she was naked from the waist down. So police showed up, and they did their forensic or site examination or whatever you call it. And they asked Eric and Lee for a list of names of people who had been in the house. And they gave him a list, and police asked Eric who he thought might have done this. And he named 2 people. Edward Bangs was one. Edward had recently painted the house, and evidently he stole a paycheck and a shotgun from the place before he finished. The other person Eric mentioned was Charles Raby. And Charles, the police really thought he was a good suspect. He was out on parole for a robbery case, which in truth was probably a law of parties case. In other words, Charles didn't know anything about the robbery, and he wasn't participating in the robbery, but he happened to be in the car when they pulled up to the convenience store, and one of the guys went in and stole a bunch of beer. But anyhow, that's the background for the crime. And I'm going to get back to hiking, and we'll take this up later. Trekking for Tarzan.